Present.
Mr. Horn,
Present.
Mr. Haymore, Dr. Miller,
Present.
Mr. Stowe,
Present.
Mr. Dudley,
Present.
and myself, 8 present, 0 absent. No one signed up to speak to the commissioners on anything that's not on the agenda. Does anyone here wish to address the commissioners on anything that's not on the agenda? Here now, we'll proceed. The approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
Motion by Mr. Stowe to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Second by Mr. Dudley. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion's passed, 8-4, 0 against. The approval of the minutes, September the 4th, 2018 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the minutes as presented.
Motion by Mr. Stowe to approve the minutes as presented in the package. Second by Mr. Horn. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion's passed unanimous, 8-4, 0 against. Chairman's report, I'd like to welcome Mr. Hunt, our county attorney, and Mr. Sides. Welcome to the meeting. Thank y'all. Ladies and gentlemen, pursuant to Article 5, Division 7 of the Pittsylvania County Zoning Ordinance, we, the Planning Commission, have been empowered to hear and decide specific applications in support of said ordinance and to make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors or the Board of Zoning Appeals. In accomplishing this important task, we are charged with promoting the health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of Pittsylvania County. We must ensure that all our decisions and recommendations be directed to these goals and that each be consistent with the environment, comprehensive plan, and the best interests of the Pittsylvania County, its citizens, and its posterity. Anyone here to speak to the board regarding zoning cases will be limited to 3 minutes. At 7:02, case R18-020 is open to public hearing. Ms. Hayes.
Case R17-020, Cheryl and Malcolm Green have petitioned to rezone a total of 7.38 acres, 2 parcels of land on Miller Drive in the Dan River Election District from R1 Residential Suburban Subdivision District to A1 Agricultural District for organic farming. Once the properties are rezoned to A1, all uses listed under section 35-178 are permitted. The staff summary is enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, Mr. and Mrs. Green are here to represent the petition.
Mr. and Ms. Green, will y'all come forward, or either one of you? Good evening. Do y'all have anything you'd like to add to the commissioners other than what Ms. Hayes has already presented to us?
We'd like to make sure that the property that we're rezoning for farming does not go the full scope of farming. We are living in a residential area. We are mindful of the fact that we want to maintain privacy for our neighbors. So there's a natural wooded border. So if the area that would extend in farming, we want to make sure that it's proffered in this agreement. That is proffered in this agreement, that there always maintain a natural border, so our neighbors that are adjacent or across from us maintain that, always have maintained that natural privacy. Secondly, we understand that there's several allowances under the rezoning of farming. We want it very specific so that it's organic in the definition that we're not using chemicals, 1, and 2, that there's no livestock, and then basically those are the the areas that we wanted to pursue. We're basically trying to make sure that we're not putting the cart before the horse. We have to make sure that we are able to pursue organic farming. But again, we want it very, very defined so that it does, again, is comfortable for our neighbors, but also possibly lucrative in terms of a farming venture. We want to also ensure that if the property has to be sold in the event of either of us passing, or alternatively, it's just advantageous as a commercial venture, that proffer still maintains, but we would be able to sell the property with that agreement that it maintains within those strict regulations that we can set up with the panel. We spoke with Ms. Hayes. We're more than happy to write out something that's, agreeable for all of us. But again, we don't want to open up avenues that if the property is transferred, that it goes into other areas that clearly aren't advantageous for our neighbors.
Any questions for Ms. Green? No one has signed up, so do you have any other comments?
Just thank you for your time.
Okay. At 7:06, the public hearing is closed for case R 18-020. Mr. Horn?
Mr. Chairman, I have visited with Ms. Green. First of all, let me give you a little history. Ms. Green relocated to the area in Danville, Cambridge, Massachusetts. That said something about our area right there, if they want to come from Cambridge, Massachusetts here. The home was built around the turn of the 18th century, the late 1700s, and they have restored that home. It looks immaculate. They welcomed me into their home when I visited the property. They are aware that for environmental friendly incidental farming, they really don't have to rezone that property, but they may at one time in the future want to sell their organic vegetables. And there is already some orchards, fruit orchards on the farm, on the 7 acres. And he's correct, he doesn't have anything but one dog, and he told me if something happened to him, he wouldn't give him more animals at all, so. But they were concerned, or they know the concerns of the neighbors. There was a piece of property several years ago that was rezoned to A1 agriculture, and that's such a broad spectrum of allowances in that zoning. This property was rezoned for one purpose, and it has been everything but that purpose. But it's A1 agricultural, and it falls within the boundaries of A1 agricultural. So, that being said, I spoke to Mr. and Ms. Green about a proffer, which is a condition to be added to this recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, stating that it would be for organic friendly farming only, that in the event of that death, or in the event that that property was sold, that it would automatically revert back to R1 residential. So, that being said, I make a motion that we recommend to the Board of Supervisors who will grant the petition to rezone their 7 acres of property from R1 residential to A1 agricultural with the proffer attached.
Motion by Mr. Horn to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to rezone the property from R1 to A1 with a proffer.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Mr. Dudley. Any discussion? If not, Ms. Hayes, call the roll for vote, please.
Can I interject here?
Excuse me, Mr. Hayes.
There's no written submitted proffer, so I guess the plan is when it goes to the board that we have it in
It
writing.
will be in there.
I just wanted to go ahead.
Correct.
Sorry to interrupt.
Should I make with the motion with a written proffer, should it? Again, I state the
I think Ms.
indication.
Green, she had something else she maybe wanted to say. She had her hand up. I just-
Just a minute, let me reopen then.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Excuse me,
I
come on in, Ms. Green, just a minute. At 7:09, case R 18-020 is reopened to public.
Okay, I'm not sure if the proffer was clear. We were concerned that we would be able to sell as agriculture, but with the conditions that we all agree to. So that if it is sold, that it would not revert back to residential, but that it could be sold as agriculture, but with the agreed proffers in place. Or alternatively, if the buyer wanted to revert it back, then we would be able to revert it back to residential.
Can we do that, Karen? Can we attach that
It
to
would
the
have to
proffer?
be a deed restriction.
sold the property, would the proffer go?
Proffers run with the land.
Mm-hmm.
My recommendation is proffers have to be in writing, they have
Right.
to be submitted prior to the opening of the public.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't do proffers tonight,
Right.
but they're just making a recommendation to the board of supervisors. So my hope is that you will get with Ms. Hayes
Mm-hmm.
before the board of supervisors meeting, which is gonna be
The name.
third Tuesday of this month.
Mm-hmm.
You will have something in writing that's voluntary and expresses what your desire is.
Okay.
That will be included in the board packet, and the board can consider those proffers at that time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Is that agreeable with you, Ms. Green?
Yes, yes, most agreeable.
Mr. Horn, is
Agreeable.
that agreeable with you? Mr. Dudley, you second the motion?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
At 7:11, public hearing on case R18-020 is closed. Again, you want to make the motion?
Make a motion that we send this to the board of supervisors with a recommendation, with a written proffer attached. This would be for organic farming only.
And I will second that motion again. How about that?
Motion by Mr. Horn, second by Mr. Dudley. Recommend to the Board of Supervisors the zoning be changed from R1 to A1 with the written proffer. Any other discussions? If not, Ms. Hayes, will you call the vote?
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Haymore? Yes. Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Mees? Yes. Mr. Stowe? Yes. Mr. Dudley?
Yes.
Mr. Motley?
Yes. Case R18-020 is passed 8-4-0 against to recommend to the Board of Supervisors change the zoning from R1 to A1 with written proffer. At 7:12, case R18-021 is open to public hearing. Ms. Hayes.
Case R18-021, Ricky and Debbie Carter have petitioned to rezone a total of 2.59 acres located on US Highway 29 North in the Banister election district from R1 Residential Suburban Subdivision District to B2 Business District General for sale, service, and repair of vehicles, a used car lot. Once the properties are rezoned to B2, all uses listed under section 35-365 are permitted. The staff summary is enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, Ricky Carter and Roger Isom are here to represent the petition.
Mr. Carter and Mr. Isom,
Yes.
will y'all come forward, please? State your name and district, please.
Ricky Carter.
I'm Roger Isom.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything to the commissioners other than what Ms. Hayes has already presented to us?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank the Lord and my Savior for this opportunity to be here. And I've been a resident of Pittsylvania County for practically all my life. I have a business, existing business here as well as another one. And I'm looking to make more progress in my life and hopefully be helpful to the county. And that I'm just looking to make a better change for many reasons.
Mr. Isom?
My interest in the property, we're in negotiations to purchase it, but it would be solely based on whether the B2 zoning would be passed. I don't intend to put a house there or anything like that, so.
Any questions to Mr. Carter? Mr. Carter, if you can find a place near the front, I do have people signed up, and you'll get to come back
Okay.
and rebuttal their
Thank you.
statements.
Thank you.
Mr. Willie T. Fitzgerald?
Good afternoon again, gentlemen and ladies. We are here to protest the rezoning of that property in that it is residential, it's been residential, and we have a nice community out there, and if it is rezoned to a business with all of those opportunities and business line, we don't know what we're gonna end up out there in that with that property. I know the last time that some property near us was rezoned, and the rezoning board eventually approved it, and come to find out now it's used for everything but what they were said it was gonna be used for. And they even using target practices out there, what some of the residents are saying. So we don't know what we're gonna get when somebody come in and rezone the property from one thing to another. The 2.6 acres that's out of there, I see a price tag of roughly $95,000. So that tells me that they have some intentions of doing something else big with it. And we don't want that in our community with our children, our grandchildren, and others coming into our residential area. I have a petition here. I don't know whether this is the proper time to present it or not, but I talked to other neighbors in our surrounding area, and they all have signed a petition protesting the rezoning of this property. I talked to a Ricky, and I believe he's a nice gentleman, but if it's sold to someone else, we don't know what we're going to end up with. So we are requesting this board not to rezone to that area, to keep it residential as it was when he bought it, and keep our community a nice, quiet community that we can enjoy the benefit of our home and community.
Mr. Fitzgerald, could you summarize some of your 3 minutes is up, please?
My 3 minutes is up. Thank y'all for your attention. We greatly
Give
request
Ms. Hayes, give Ms. Hayes the petition you
petition.
have.
And I can also acquire other names that necessary.
Ms. Fitzgerald, I've got a question. How many residentials since the 21st century has been built along this up from town of Chatham to the dry bridge where the old the Dominion Cultural Center? How many residentials been built?
How many has been built? Mm-hmm. Since when?
Since 2000.
I don't know if it's any.
How many businesses has been built in that same district?
I don't know of any unless it was the medical center, and I don't know when that was built. You might can tell me when that was built, but other than that, to the what building?
To the dry bridge, to the railroad track in it.
Well, that's one down below me, so that's the
within a
the
half
ag,
a mile. Within a half a mile.
with the ag complex, yes.
Yeah, the ag complex.
Yeah.
Hadn't also the Cherrystone South Educational, Cherrystone Educational Recreation Center, hadn't that been built?
I don't know if I consider that a business, but yes, that's been built. I don't know when it was built.
And in the Farm Bureau building right there just past y'all, also under construction now.
There's construction going on there now, yes.
Right. What is your 911 address?
473 Mill Creek Road, Chatham, Virginia.
Right, 473, okay. Because when I visited the sites, I was hunting, for the names, and that's the reason. I went down the Mill Creek Road, and I did see the 473, but no names, and that's the
No
reason.
name.
No names are on the mailboxes.
Well, there's no mailbox there.
Right, 2 paper boxes.
Right. I get my mail through the post office.
Right. Thank
Yeah.
you. I have no other question. Anybody have any other questions?
This, strip of land, it comes down a long ways down, 29, it's got several lots, I see houses and things. How do they get to that property?
How do they? Which one you referring to, may I ask?
It's, you got a long strip,
The
a narrow strip.
the house to my, I guess you want to say to my left, they have easement off of 29 to that piece of property. The property to my house, I have easement off of 691 a Mill Creek Road. My neighbor there, she also has easement off of 691 Mill Creek Road to her property. I don't know what the other ones you referred to.
Well, there's 2 lots here, I see houses and all kinds of buildings there. I just look at the 29, look like there's no way. So this thing is kind of a hard shape.
Across the road, Ms. Fitzgerald, the property zoned M1.
No, I didn't know that.
Yes, sir. The Cherrystone Educational Recreation Center is zoned M1.
M1, what's that mean? Help me out.
Light manufacturing. Am I correct on that, Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Light industry.
No, I
Uh,
mean,
You
but
could have
if-
steel, you could have steel fabricating, building.
but I'm sure Reverend Floyd Jones has it for his church. He may have to have rezoned it to get it, but it is used for church purpose and also for education purpose of children. So that's another factor, because they have tutoring there for the youth. So it's being used for a good purpose.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, I mean, 29 is gonna be commercial, hands down, I mean, we know that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you rather have somebody like Ricky Carter to own that property, to know, and you can talk to and deal with, and you have somebody come down here from Baltimore, Maryland, or Hong Kong, China, and
I think he already owns it, Mr. Haymore.
well, that's what I'm saying, I mean, you know it, that he owns it and what have you, that you can talk to him and make sure that, I mean, somebody that you can talk to of what he's gonna put down, how he's gonna do it, or what he's gonna do that's gonna be adverse to you, where if somebody comes in from Timbuktu, Arkansas, if you don't know, they're gonna tell you to fly a kite.
And see, the problem with that, Mr. Haymore, I agree with you, but if he decides to sell, because he's a businessman, and he might decide next week to turn around, if it's rezoned, and sell it from somebody from Arkansas or Timbuktu to make $1. So then I'm caught in a dilemma, right?
Any
Mr.
other
Chairman,
questions?
I
Ms.
just
Meeks,
want to
go ahead.
say, I know Mr. Fitzgerald, know most of those people on that petition, good people out there. And I understand your concerns. But I live on Route 40 West from Gretna.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived across the business ever since I've been married, throughout the years of my marriage. I always thought, everybody said, doesn't that business, the traffic upset you? And I said, no. You know why? Because it's security. Because that place was open all the time, and I felt secure there. And then recently, we had Perkins Tire and Recapping built up the road from me. And that's on Route 40, busy highway. But they are the best neighbors we've ever had. I just took my car up today and had the oil change. I would say that this business would be, hopefully, a good neighbor to all of y'all out there. And it's like was just said, it could be a much worse business that's going to be established. And maybe the owner will consider, if it's agreed, maybe a buffer or something that y'all wouldn't hear. I don't know what his hours are, but I understand your concern. But it's not all bad to have a business close by. Just want to say that.
I wouldn't say it's all bad, but I don't see the good that's going to help our property, our neighbors, my grandchildren when they come down to visit. And if you ride around in the county and look at some of these car lots, you know, they start off nice, but then all of a sudden you see old cars sitting around, junk cars sitting around, and these kind of things going on in those car lots. And this is not what we want for our neighborhood. And also, we got a nice medical center over there that, you know, we just don't feel like it's good for our neighborhood to have that kind of a business in our neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Fitzgerald.
Thank you.
Ms. Dora Adams. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Dora Adams, and I live next to the property that you all are talking about. And I wouldn't think it's a good idea because I have grandchildren there that live with me. And I mean, they out playing and everything, and then their friends come and they play too. So I wouldn't think you know, for me, it wouldn't be a good idea to rezone it.
Ms. Adams, Your, EMS or 911 address is Mill Creek Road. You don't enter in off of 29, do you?
No.
Right. Any questions for? You have anything else you'd like?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Lillian Fitzgerald. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for letting us speak. I reside there at that property next to where you're asked to rezone. And I think that when it was properly purchased R1, right? Was it? And after it probably didn't sell because the sign's been out there for a while. Well, you say no one bought it, so they'll build. Well, no one is going to buy because we're still sort of watching where we build, and you know who's living right there in that area. So if you're looking for a nice, spacious place, no one is going to build right there. So therefore, we're trying to turn it into a B1 or the business, whatever, for that. So we have to get over that dilemma. I guess you all know that, and that's why you see these businesses popping up all around there, because no one wants to come and build a house, I guess, right in. You want to be beside the neighbors that you know, and that's not a place that you want to build. So that's why we don't have a route right out there on 29 right now, because someone later on down the line decided, hey, well, I want to go a different direction. Now, we just had that easement out the back, which is backwards, but it worked out well for us. So I say that to say we want to keep it R1 for our safety and for the benefit of our community.
Any
Thank you.
questions for Ms. Fitzgerald?
Questions?
Anything else you'd like to add to it?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Carter? Mr. Isom? Anything you'd like to present to us? You've heard what the opponents.
I've been in business for nearly 40 years running a dealership, and I'm not bragging, but I probably have one of the nicest dealerships around as far as cleanliness and representation and being good to the community. And there, you can go anywhere and see a old junk car sitting around somewhere, but if I had one sitting there, I'd keep it clean, even though it might have looked junky. I understand where they're coming from as far as residential, and but I think within a half a mile, as y'all stated, it's between 12 and 13 either B2 or M1 properties there. I'm adjoining to a B2 property as well as a B2 behind me, as well as across the highway. I'm here for the better. I'm here to be a good neighbor to Mr. Fitzgerald and anybody else that's there, the lady beside him. And I just pray that y'all take into consideration.
Any questions for Mr. Carter? Mr. Carter, I do have a question. I was Saturday morning, I was sitting over there in Cherrystone Recreation, sun a lot looking across the road. And at basically kind of in front of Mr. Fitzgerald's house, there is a strip mowed like a road going up into this property. Are you keeping that mowed, or is somebody else mowing it? It's not growed up like the others. It's I would say it's about 10 to 12 feet wide or more.
Actually, that belongs to Mr. Fitzgerald, and he's kept it mowed. I don't have any objections whatsoever. My intentions is not to do anything there. My intentions is down a little bit further.
Right, but I mean, it's not showing traffic, but it's just mowed like, you know, an easement through there, but
That is correct. There is
it's not a egress or ingress being used, but it is being mowed.
That is
and
correct.
everything. Is
Yes,
that?
sir.
But Mr. Fitzgerald's doing that.
Yes,
Even
yes.
though, but that is your property, am I?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any,
Mr. Chairman,
Ms.
I'd like
Neese.
to, Mr. Carter, what are your hours gonna be open?
But right now, my hours basically from 9 till 2, 4 to 5 days a week. It'll naturally be based on the growth If it increases, then I may move up to 5 days. But normally it's from 9 to 2, Monday through Thursday, and on the weekends by appointment.
Are your plans, do they include a fencing, like, blind fence, whatever you call that?
Not
The
at this
outside.
time, but later on, it may be, you put something back there in the back to keep things, that does look maybe not quite right, behind a privacy fence.
Okay.
Since you said it brought up about the fence and everything, Ms. Adams, I believe, said the grandchildren, I believe it is, could be, you might need, would you put up a fence to keep children
That's
out?
what I was thinking.
At some point in time, you may have to, it'll be good for protection for both sides.
Any other questions? Thank y'all.
Thank you.
At 7:30, public hearing for case R18-021 is closed.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
in the case R18-012, I'm going to communicate first of all about this. In B2, the definition is a district for general business and commercial enterprise limited to commercial, retail, and wholesale type establishments oriented to service the entire country. And I'm going to say this, that I don't know everything, but I have, over the years, observed the businesses owned by Mr. Carter and Mr. Isom. And I can say that from just observation passing up and down 29, the businesses look clean, the businesses look reputable. I have not observed any clutter or things of that sort, and I would have to say they seem to be well run. As a matter of fact, I think I've bought at least one vehicle from them over the years. So, with that, also, this is basically in my neighborhood as well. And I have due concern for Mr. Fitzgerald and the lady with them. But in good conscience, I am going to recommend passage of the petition R1 to B1 to the Board of Supervisors.
Motion by Dr. Miller to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to change the zoning from R1 to B2. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second by Mr. Dudley. I'd like a discussion before we have a vote.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sides. In the long-range planning for VDOT, 29, we're pretty sure, once Charlottesville ever agrees to how they want the bypass or interstate to go, won't 29 be upgraded to, is it 785, I believe it is? Is it?
That's correct.
All right, if I understand, it's already plans showing that it comes off of, I think, in the area, general area of Blair's Fire Department, and comes back in. Why they're coming back in down here at Cherrystone, I don't know. I think they'd come in over at 57. But aren't they plans already in the development of coming back in at Cherrystone where 29 business goes into Chatham?
Yes, sir, that is in the long-range 29 plan.
And then when you come off the Chatham bypass, they'll be upgrading. Do you know of any, are they aiming to make any changes on 29? They'll be widened or access roads?
I'm not aware of any major changes that would be proposed.
That's my discussion. Y'all have any?
That access roads, Blouse is the biggest place, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
I know that, yeah, that's.
Right.
They're going to be very careful about access in the future. You know, if that highway develops, you would not be able to, every 20 feet, have a driveway along Highway 29.
Right,
You know,
but,
that's one of the things they would focus is that you would only have selected business access.
right, and it would be no crossovers at all if it goes to interstate status, is that
Very
correct?
minimal, correct.
Right, thank you. Any other?
This, I guess, the 10-foot strip that goes down the road right away, that's what I'm talking about.
Right,
I got a problem with that. It's no good to anybody, really, is it?
well, that's going to have to do with the landowner.
Adverse possession can take care of it after a while. So many years.
Right,
Unless they widen the road or something.
right.
Because it goes a long ways down the road there,
Right.
covers, several lots. Blocks access to, 29. Well, I understand in the near future, they hope to block it out, block it all together, but, I don't know.
Any other discussions? If not, Ms. Hayes, call the roll for the vote, please. And the motion is to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to change the zoning from R1 to B2.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Haymore?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Mees?
Yes.
Mr. Stowe?
Yes.
Mr. Dudley?
Yes.
Mr. Motley?
Yes. The motion's passed, 8 for, 0 against, to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to change the zoning from R1 to B2 on case R18-021. Thank y'all. At 7:37, case R18-022 is open to public hearing. Ms. Hayes.
Case R 18022, Smith Mount Dock and Lodge has petitioned to rezone a total of 8.82 acres located on Smith Mountain Road in the Callands, Gretna election district from A1 agricultural district to RPD residential plan unit development. To rezone the properties back to the original zoning designation as stated on item 18 of the proper condition of development dated March 2014. They petitioned to rezone the property to A1, got a special use for a campground. One of the proper conditions, if they didn't use it for the campground, it had to revert back. The staff summary is enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, Thomas Brooks is here to represent the petition.
Mr. Brooks, please come forward, please.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Thomas Brooks. I'm a land surveyor with Acres of Virginia Incorporated. And as staff has already told you, we're here to rezone a piece of property and bring it back into a RPD status from A1. My clients did not use the property for the uses that they proposed in 2014. The business plan wasn't a good business model for them, wasn't going to be good for Pittsylvania County, so they've dropped the issue, gone to a different business model, and in order to do what they want to do, it needs to be zoned RPD, which was submitted in the proffers. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
What are they really aiming to do? I mean, could you give us a general?
Yes, sir, I sure can. What they want to do, and RPD is the only zoning that can do this, and Karen and I are going to have to work together on trying to figure out how to make this development meet the guidelines of RPD and work inside of RPD as well. They want to do long-term rentals or short-term rental homes. They want to actually go in there and build sizable homes, 2-bedroom homes. The architecture, they're going to meet some architectural standards. And the homes are going to be sold by themselves, but the actual land itself is going to stay in as community land. Sort of, I don't know if anybody are familiar with some of the developments in Myrtle Beach and some of the beach areas, but you'll go in and you can actually purchase a house that's sitting there. You just don't own the land, and the land is taken care of by your fees that you pay into the homeowners association on a monthly basis. So that's what their aim is, and they cannot do that currently in the A1 zoning. So therefore, they want a petition to bring it back to RPD as the I believe it's proffer number 18 that stated.
Any questions?
Oh, go ahead. How many units are you planning on having?
The maximum amount of units that could be put on this piece of property, if it has water and sewer, which it does not at this time, would be 21 units according to RPD standards. Therefore, right now they're going to have to use existing drain fields that they have on sites, and they have existing wells, including one commercial grade well on the property. So right now, unless they can do something with water and sewer in the future, they're going to be limited to the amount of units that they can put on this property at this time. But they do want to start off with at least 5 units, and they do have good leads on pre-sales for each one of these units at this time.
Thank you.
Mr. Stowe? You said it's no public water. I was thinking Service Authority had run water down 626 from a tank they had, I guess would be what, west of y'all?
Well, and I have been made aware of that, but what I was told by the client and the owner that it has not been extended all the way down to this particular property, and they were looking into the cost of trying to extend that water line to this property and see if it was cost effective for them or not.
Right. I knew they had run Service Authority.
Yeah, it's closed,
public
and
water.
they're looking into that matter, but it's all about numbers at this point in time. How do the numbers break down?
Right. Any questions for him?
Is the sewage coming with that water? Do they run the sewage line with, if you run the water line?
The only thing that I'm aware of up there are mass drain field areas for certain developments in that area. At this time, I don't think the Service Authority has run any type of sewer line anywhere close to this project.
Not aware. I see a gentleman, I'll give him, if you'll have a seat down front. Is anyone in the audience that did not get a chance to sign up wish to speak on this case? Come forward and state your name, please, because no one signed up on the book. But I saw you raise your hand, so I want to give you the opportunity. You have
Thank you,
3
sir.
minutes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And your name, please.
My name is Harold Arthur, and I don't live very far from this property. And my question to the gentleman is there a site plan that we could possibly see as residents to what this is going to be developed into? Because right now it's kind of an open-ended thing. Do we have $50,000 units? Do we have what the sizes are and what we can expect, what the roads is going to be like going in? And I think it would be beneficial for, as a resident in the area, to see this kind of thing. And you are correct. There is a water tank down the road up from the property where there's a huge water tank. It's not being used, and I'm assuming that was for something that was previously planned. It didn't work out. But this property, I'd certainly like to see what's going to be there. And I've already talked to the gentleman, and I hope they'll do this before the next meeting with the Board of Supervisors.
Remember, we just make recommendations.
Yes, sir, I do.
On the road end of it, they're saying it's gonna be a minimum of 15 feet, and it's gonna be paved.
Okay. Right now, it's a bunch of leftover mobile home sites on this piece of land. And the mobile home sites, the previous structures that service those mobile homes haven't been taken down, and they mow around this, so it's very difficult to tell what it's going to be, because you've got a spot of land here that's not mowed, a spot over here that is mowed, and it's not very really appealing when you drive by it, because they mow sections, they leave sections, and some of the areas are growing trees, they've left them so long around the mobile home site. So are the mobile home site parts going to be torn down? Is there going to be something there that is going to look decent with grass growing? Are we going to build the units down by the lake? This is the kind of stuff that I would like to see from the planner in this, so we know what's going to be going in.
Any other questions, Mr.
Thank
Alden?
you.
Thank you. Sir, you have anything you'd like to rebuttal on?
Not necessarily a rebuttal. I'll just try to answer his questions for him. Right now, our concern is for the board to make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to rezone this to RPD so that we can do this project. The amount of money that my client is looking to put into this project, and we're talking about, and I had already discussed with him prior to this, to the meeting, these homes are going to be around $200,000 a pop. So in some areas that's modest, but on Smith Mountain Lake, you know, you're probably going to get that. And like I said, he's already got individuals that are already interested in it. So there's going to be community standards that are going to be set forth. There's going to be stipulations, restrictions, the entire, deed restrictions along with this property. So right now in its current status, it may be an eyesore, but if it's not rezoned, it's going to continue to stay an eyesore, and the owner can continue to do what he's doing. As far as the plan goes, right now we do have a proposal that we're working on. However, we have not submitted that to Karen yet, and we're still in the process of the rezoning of the property before we finalize anything. But I have no problem at the time. Of course, the zoning regulations are going to dictate what we can and what we cannot do in RPD. So there are certain stipulations in the RPD that we're going to have to meet, and we will meet them, as well as VDOT. We're going to have to deal with them. With the entrance standards, we're going to have to upgrade the entrance that's in there. DEQ, we're going to have to also deal with them with stormwater management issues. So there's going to be a lot of things addressed that I cannot address between now and the next board meeting to get on my site plan for the board to see a finalized plan.
Any other questions?
But there will, fear not, there will be a plan and it will be submitted.
Thank you, sir. At 7:47, public hearings closed on case R 18-022. Ms. Meese. Motion by Ms. Meese, second by Mr. Haymore, to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to change the zoning from A1 to RPD. Any discussions? If not, Ms. Hayes, roll call, please.
Mr. Motley?
Yes.
Mr. Dudley?
Yes.
Mr. Stowe? Yes. Ms. Meese? Yes. Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Haymore? Yes. Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
The motion's passed 8-4, 0 against, to recommend to the Board of Supervisors zoning be changed from A1 to RPD. At 7:48, case R 18-023 is open public hearing. Ms. Hayes.
Case R 18023 Danville Farms LLC has petitioned to rezone a total of 185 acres, 185.35 acres, 3 parcels located on Ringgold Road and Tomport Road in the Dan River Election District from B1 Business District Limited to R1 and R1 Residential Suburban Subdivision District to A1 Agricultural District for a solar energy facility. They will
Mr. Wilhelm. Good evening.
Actually, Marcus Wilhelm is the owner and president of the company, but I am Tom Terrell, attorney for Strata, and I will be speaking for him, and we have another representative here tonight. I do represent Strata Solar and its subsidiary, Danville Farm LLC. I think some of you may know that Strata is not only one of the largest solar developers in the Southeast, they're one of the most prominent, and on a project-by-project basis, they certainly have earned the reputation among these companies as the one that develops these the right way. I'm joined tonight with Mr. Jackson Naftel, who is the Senior Director of Development, Mr. Louis Ione, who is the Head of Site Acquisition and Development, and Ms. Chelsea Woodfin, who is the Senior Lead Development Associate on this project. The golf course, the Ringgold Golf Course, has been for sale. It had been for sale, and Strata Solar has a contract to purchase it, subject to all of the local permits and other approvals and other things, of course, taking place. It's 185 acres in total. It's important to know, though, that a very ample, large 75-acre buffer will be left around that periphery, much of that in timberland, separating the solar arrays from the neighbors on the side. Now, technically it is a down zoning, but if you look at the current zoning map, you will see that just about every single tract out there is already A1 or R1, so that converting this business zone to A1 would actually make it a lot more consistent with the surrounding zoning. We did have a neighborhood meeting on August 20th. That meeting was at the golf course clubhouse. It was very convenient for all the neighbors who wanted to come out. It was very well attended by all the neighbors who came from Ringgold Road and elsewhere. They asked many questions, and I think it's fair to say that as they left, not only were a vast majority of those okay with it, but we had quite a few folks who left saying, if you need somebody to speak for this, if you need somebody to come out and help you moderate an issue, call us. They gave us their numbers, and we gave them our numbers. We gave them our personal private numbers. We gave them our emails. We have, in fact, had a couple of calls since then with questions that came up in their minds. But it's been a very good relationship that we've had with the neighbors. I'd like to introduce Mr. Ione at this point to give you a couple of more details about the project.
Y'all have a map?
Yes.
Would you like someone to hold a larger map up?
Everybody's fine with what you have in the package? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Louis Ione. I'm a developer with Strata. Actually located this site, and it's not often that I get to stand up and say that our project is going to be a direct benefit to the community that we're seeking to put it in, because generally we're selling our power to one of the large utilities, Duke, Dominion, Georgia Power, so forth. This power is going to be sold to Danville Electric, who serves that area. When I found the piece of property, I started researching Danville, searched Danville Solar. I found that y'all had approved one solar farm a couple of years ago. Then I started to find articles about the cost of power in Danville for various reasons. Danville has some very high power purchase contracts, and they've got an opportunity to replace some of those with power that's generated locally that will serve the immediate customers. There's a large industrial base almost adjacent to this project, or very close proximity, brand new substation. that power will be generated right there and go a half a mile. A large part of the high power bills are due to all types of fees that the big utilities and the grid operators charge. We're going to eliminate a lot of those, and through all of those various fee reductions and just the simple rate that we're selling the power for. I believe I found an article where Mr. Gray, the utility director, I don't know if y'all know Jason, but fine young fella, I think he said he was going to replace $60 a megawatt hour power with $8 an hour megawatt power. So we don't often get to say that when we're going to, for a project that we're hooking up to Duke, because we're not selling the power to a city or a county in North Carolina. We're selling it to Duke. Here, we're selling the power to y'all. So, so we feel like that's a big factor in a rezoning. As Mr. Terrell said, we're using about 60% of this land. We're leaving a very large buffer between really the minority of the perimeter that does have homes. If you look at your map, you'll see that most of the perimeter is creeks, heavily wooded creeks, so nobody's ever going to have a view of the project from those directions. The homes that are adjacent to the golf course, there's a minimum, I believe it's 500 feet, and that gets larger, up to 700 feet on the northwest corner. Very large buffer. I can't say this is the most concealed project I've worked on, but I've permitted 70 projects like this for Strata, and this, I think, would be the second most concealed project. It's 500 feet's a long way. It's almost 2 football fields. So, and that ground, if you know the area, there's a lot of topography that will shield the view. There's a lot of very mature natural trees that will shield the view. We're going to augment those natural wooded areas with a lot of new plant material. Danville's a great growing environment. It's got good soil and good climate to grow trees. So this will be among the most well buffered projects that we've built. We did have a community meeting because since this is a rezoning, people's opinions always matter, but this opinions really matter in a rezoning. And we were able to we had it in the clubhouse out there, and we were able to stand in the clubhouse and look out the window and say, now basically look down the edge of that parking lot. That's as close as it's going to get to you. And you could sort of see the relief in the neighbors' faces, because that was the first they had seen of it. And one fair question that I got was, well, why are we just now finding out about this? The reason is it took about 4 months to find out whether or not we had a viable project. I put the property into contract in March, and it took 3 to 4 months for Mr. Gray, who was evaluating about a dozen projects. By the way, we were selected, our project and another was selected out of, I think, about a dozen projects. It took some time for him to evaluate and then advance it to the Utility Commission. At that point, we felt like we had a good shot at the project, so that's when we started to plan the community meeting. And that was a good question, I thought. So we're able to tell neighbors, where the project is, and they can look out there and see it, and you could immediately see the relief, because they didn't know much about the project, and only that it was going to be there. So I don't think anyone's here to oppose tonight, as Mr.
We have one sign.
Okay. As Mr. Terrell said, the reactions at the meeting were generally very good. There was very good press about the project. Strata is one of the largest developers in the country. We're very well capitalized. We own and operate the equivalent of nearly 2 nuclear power plants. We're an hour and a half down the road. If anybody needs to come and see us, we'd love to have you visit and see our operations. I feel like this is a great project. It's a benefit to the community and should not cause anyone any harm. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions to it?
I've got a question. Will this be creating jobs for the locals, and if so, will you be hiring within Pittsylvania County?
We'll create a lot of jobs during construction. I'd be hard pressed to say we create much more than a couple permanent jobs. There is regular maintenance required on these projects. Now, I will say with the buildings that are there, we've given some thought to possibly establishing a maintenance facility on the property, because we're leaving 40% of it unused. There's a paved road, paved parking lot. There's a nice building out there. There's some outbuildings. There's a lot of land, and we're doing a lot of work in Virginia. We're I think it'd probably be fair to say we're somewhat of a preferred contractor for Dominion, and so I know we've got probably 6 or 8 projects in a similar or maybe earlier stage than this. We've got a couple of very large projects in the eastern part of Virginia that are getting ready to start construction, but Virginia is going to be one of the leading solar states, and so I could possibly see us possibly creating permanent jobs around here, but I can't promise you that we'll create more than 1 or 2 right now.
I got a couple of things. First of all, that is in my neighborhood, it's actually in my district, but I'm a neighbor, not a property owner. That
Sure.
butts up against the golf course, but I'm very familiar with it. I have some questions. First of all, as a citizen, what are the intents or the plans for the clubhouse, the existing clubhouse? I've heard scuttlebutt, but I want to hear it from somebody that should know.
We don't have any plans right now. Jackson, do you know any better?
No, right now there's no plans with it. As Lewis mentioned, at some point in the future, we'd love to consider a maintenance facility out of there, but right now we have no plans. And we're open to ideas.
Yes.
All right, as a citizen, question number 2. Let's talk about the upkeep. And I want to go upkeep because, and I know this is very probably premature, because this is only step 1 in a long process.
Right.
But you made mention to the existing site that we had a couple of years ago in the Kentucky area. I'm not real pleased with the upkeep of that property inside the fenced area. Grass is, and I know, initially grass has got to be allowed to grow, especially after all the grading and construction that was done in that site, and it's still going on the backside of it. But I think it got to a point that grass could be cut, and it could be kept up a little better than what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
What's the company stand on how often they do it? How often,
Each project's unique because every piece of real estate is unique. We will be happy to design a local agreement, would have the effect of an ordinance, set a schedule that's mutually agreeable, some parameters some standards that are mutually agreeable. That would be part of a conditional use permit. It could be a condition to a conditional use permit, and then that will be a contract. When we finish construction of a project, we turn it over to an asset management. It's a strata subsidiary, but it's literally legally turned over to an asset management subsidiary, and we can hand them those standards that says it's going to be mowed once a month. Trees must grow to this height by this date. I'd be happy to work with staff or design a plan and bring it to the commissioners. It can be part of the conditional use permit process. Does any of that?
thank you for that answer. Because, we're learning in this.
Yeah, okay. Well, each property is, we have, in North Carolina, we have 4 maintenance facilities around the state, and so they just sort of, do their rounds. we have such a facility in Chapel Hill, so an hour and a half is not far for such a crew to travel. So, getting here won't be a problem. We have our biggest maintenance facility is in Chapel Hill. We have 3 offices in Chapel Hill. We have a small solar farm and then a warehouse where we bring materials in, and we have a maintenance crew that operates out of there. Then we have a building that we bought that we have primarily our accounting staff in, and then we rent the entire top of a building where our engineers and our group is. So we have a lot of people not far from here, including a maintenance staff. So getting here will not be a problem.
Mr. Horn, with your permission, Ms. Hayes, they will be required a special use permit, is that correct?
That is correct.
So would this fall in when we have a special use permit? Well, when that falls in?
But
Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
also
Horn.
sure the county has an ordinance for any kind of piece of property that says you must maintain it in a certain way, whatever it says. And if it doesn't, then Ms. Hayes or someone from the county is going to send us a letter, and where there's a special use permit on the line, we feel like we do our job anyway. But I'm sure you probably already have a means in place that we can sort of work into.
Not as a whole, but I think this fits very well within the special use permit because there is a landscaping screening requirement, and this would fit in there very well.
Remember, you guys aren't going to deal with special use, that'll be the BZA. However, unlike rezoning that has proffers, which are voluntary, you can put mandatory conditions because the use is more intensive for special use, and one of the conditions could be in reference to maintenance and appearance. And you always have the option, the BZA has the option to revoke a special use permit if they fail to live up to these conditions. It's rare. I've been doing local government law for 16 years. I've only done it once because most of the time when they have an investment in a property, they don't want to jeopardize that and they fix it. But just know through the special use process, there will be an opportunity to impose mandatory conditions on it.
This is about as tough as a process as we go through. Multi-steps.
Answer that. Okay, now as a planning commissioner, I was gonna ask about a security bond, so that down the road somewhere, it's decommissioned, is the taxpayer, Pittsylvania County gonna have to suffer that? But I see a proffer in here, and that proffer states that the company will pay for the decommissioning of the site, should that happen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There's a lot of parts to that answer. First of all, the project will be very well funded, so you don't have to worry about there not being an owner there with money to do the work. Second, the salvage value of the material, the most permanent construction we do almost is driving a post into the dirt ground, and so that's very easily pulled back out. So the equipment goes up fairly simply, it bolts together, it comes out fairly simply, the posts are pulled out, all that is steel, that's very recyclable, the panels are recyclable, of course the metal wiring is recyclable, so there's much more, there's value there to get back if the project's ever decommissioned. So there's a lot of value there.
Last question.
Sir, no problem. I love doing this.
Done this and seen the construction of and the erecting of solar farms. How many have you seen decommissioned?
I have not seen one. We've got farms probably approaching 10 years old, but they have a 25-year at least useful life. So I'm sure there's been solar farms decommissioned in other states where solar's not so new, but
If I may, Mr. Horn, decommissioning bond is required. It's in our ordinance.
I see that now. That's all I have, promise.
Any other questions?
That was a clarification I was gonna make as well, that
In fact, in our ordinance, we got the landscaping requirements, we got the decommissioning bond, and it's, you know, I haven't read everything that the applicant submitted, but our decommissioning bond is fairly strict, and, you know, we've had a few people express a little discomfort, but we think it's very important that we not be left with a mess. So it's a pretty tight bonding requirement.
Thank you. Would you like to say anything else?
I would only to say, we will actually put something in writing that's very specific at a later point as to the maintenance.
Any questions for, I do have somebody signed up to speak, so you'll get to come back. Okay. Mr. Lasser, did I pronounce that correct?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lucas Paul, and it happened a year and a half ago. I became a resident of Ringgold, right across the golf course, and apparently I'm maybe even the only neighbor that didn't have a chance to attend the meeting that you held at August 20th. I'm not sure exactly what was the group of people that were invited to the meeting, but at least my neighbors from the Bunker Lane, they did not have a chance to be there. First of all, let me state that I am absolutely pro and supportive to any sort of eco solutions for the energy. So please don't look at me as an opponent. I have more questions than concerns. As I said, I did not have a chance to be in the meeting. So first of all, I would really love to see what is the location of the investment. What is the scale of the panels that will be installed over there? From sort of selfish standpoint, just looking for my house.
Are you one of these houses, Jason?
Bunker Lane is here, and that's my house.
So.
Okay, I can see.
Closest.
And this here, I guess, as well, yeah?
Well, no, that's actually a buffer.
All right.
The equipment is, this is the better. More contrast. So the purple is the equipment.
Location, and this is.
This is
okay,
what's already
all right.
there. This is the golf club house. Parking lot, if you've ever driven in there. So this is already there. This is what we propose as the, so there's all of this heavy buffering. You live
over here. Yeah. So the biggest question for me already answered. Thank you very much. Following this, because there is a big buffer that you reserve to separate from the installation from the neighborhood, are there any potential chances that I don't know, after 1, 2, 3 years you're gonna change the plans and the buffer will just disappear and there will be panels installed?
No, I can't imagine this board approving that. I can't imagine why we would want to do that. We're going to put many millions of dollars into this and start selling power. I can't imagine why we would want to change the project, and I can't imagine.
See, let me interrupt. Could you summarize your presentation because your 3 minutes is up, sir?
Yeah, my main question is already answered, so I don't want to take too much time. If there is any chance that maybe you can advise where can I find more information?
Sir, I would recommend you get with them after the meeting or tomorrow or sometime. This is a public hearing.
Glad to come and see you, sir.
Okay, that's perfectly fine.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any questions for it? Thank you. Is anyone, no one signed up besides Mr. Luxon? Anyone signed up wish to address this? If not, Mr. Boyd, you have the rebuttal of anything he has to say.
I will just address very quickly the last question, which is about changing plans. I don't think, I have maybe worked on over 100 projects with different companies. I don't think I have ever seen but one plan for an expansion, and it really was a separate site, technically. When you come in, you have to have an arrangement with what is called the off-taker, the utility, and everything becomes set. You have agreements, you have contracts, they are purchasing a certain amount, and so you really are, I won't say stuck, but you fix what you need at that time of development, and you don't need or have any desire to come back in to change it later. So what we're going to show on the site plans are what will be on the site plans.
Any other questions for him? Mr. Davis.
I'd like to fill in the public on, the council made notion or made the statement of far as maybe you did about the more solar farms or solar operations coming into the state of Virginia. That is a reason for that. And the question is how much, and especially in Pittsylvania County, how many are going to be allowed as far as the supervisor is concerned is still up for debate. But however, in the state of Virginia, speaking with the Governor McAuliffe about a year ago, when we were putting this one in down there in Ringgold, is that Norfolk, Virginia, there's something that's tied in with that facility there, our military as well, that if we don't put in solar farms throughout Virginia, that there's a strong possibility that Norfolk and the naval shipyards and all can move to South Carolina. Now you can understand the economic collapse or the economic proposition that would put on our state. So this solar farms are here, and they're going to be coming in the state of Virginia. And one of the biggest reasons is to keep Norfolk in place, because I don't need the Navy shipyards going to South Carolina, and this state doesn't either. So anyway, that's why, one of the reasons, and if you wanted to know why, and you wanted to connect the dots, I don't know. Mr. McAuliffe didn't give me a lot of detail. He just said if you want to keep the Norfolk, you may want to consider keeping solar farms and bringing them into your state. So anyway, that's what I wanted to comment on that. And one more question and one more statement, and I agree with Mr. Horn, is I'm not really impressed with the solar farm we've got in Ringgold as far as the upkeep is concerned. 2 times a year, 2 mowings a year is not going to get it. And I'm going to be putting that on to the BZA, because I'm going to make sure we're going to have it cut well if that facility goes in. I'm not going to tolerate 2 times a year. That's just ludicrous.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
May I just go on record, since I said I was speaking for Mr. Wilhelm when I stood up here at first. Strata Solar doesn't do that. Strata Solar will not do that. Strata Solar will put in writing a minimum number of times. We can work out what that would be. It actually changes depending upon what type of grass, what type of climate. There are a lot of variables for that. But it's even more complicated. It's about not replacing when you do plant vegetated buffers, and sometimes they die after you put them in. Do you replace them? Many companies do not. Strata will put into writing all that it will do, and it will be enforceable.
Thank you, Counselor.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. At 8:18, public hearing on case R18-023 is closed.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Horn.
I make a motion that we recommend to the Board of Supervisors that in case R18-023, this property be rezoned from R1 residential and B1 business to A1 agricultural.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davis, okay. Motion by Mr. Horn, second by Mr. Davis, to recommend to the Board of Supervisors the zoning be changed from B1 and R1 to A1. Any discussions? If not, Ms. Hayes?
Mr. Motley?
Yes.
Mr. Dudley?
Yes.
Mr. Stowe?
Yes.
Ms. Meese? Yes. Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Haymore?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
The motion's passed, 8-4, 0 against, to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to change the zoning from B1 and R1 to A1 on case R18-023. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Any old business?
I don't have any, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Sides? Mr. Hunt? New business, Ms. Hayes. Mr. Sides.
You want it done?
It has come to the attention that someone wanted a group home, to be located in a residential area. This would be for, treatment of addictions, alcoholics. The only thing is we don't have anything in our ordinance that addresses this. So we was looking at possibly adding it as a special use in the residential zones, so that would provide them, in the code, it exempts, group homes for developmentally disabled, but it excludes any type of addictions. So we need a recommendation to add it onto the agenda to come before the planning commission and then make a recommendation to the board of supervisors.
Would we have to have a public hearing?
Yes, sir.
That's what I was saying, but we have to get it on the agenda to have the public hearing.
Somewhere in the ordinance.
Ms.
Right.
Sides.
Ms. Hayes was initially contacted by a gentleman that was interested in buying a home to do this, and I think he told you he was gonna go ahead and buy the home, right, because of the time factor. But,
There is someone here for that.
oh, okay.
For the group.
Yes, you come forward, please, help us.
He's with Hope, Center Ministry.
I'll give your name and,
My name is Gary Robertson, and I and my family have lived for a number of generations here in Southside. One of the reasons I suspect that you don't have an ordinance for that is because there has not been any residential drug recovery programs here in Southside. And I don't think any of us would debate the fact that there is a drastic need for that. If I can give you just a little background of where we are at this point. Am I stuck on this 3 minutes or whatever?
no, not on new business, the public hearing is the.
Okay.
Is y'all, does the commissioners want to hear? Please, yes, sir.
Hope Center Ministries was started in Middle Tennessee, about an hour west of Nashville, in 2007. And now there's a network of 8 programs, and one of them is in Henry County. If you are familiar with the Irishburg area, far southeast corner of Henry County, very close to the Pittsylvania County line, as a matter of fact. That center is a men's drug and alcohol recovery center. It was started in July of last year. Been open about a year and a half. During that time, we've had more than 40 residents as a part of that program. It is a residential program with 2 programs. One's an 8-month program, one's a 12-month program. We've had over 40 individuals as a part of that program in that process. I will say to you that at this point, we've had 4 men returned to incarceration. I don't have to tell you folks in this community, and it's true of all the other counties around us, that our jails are full. I'm the director of admissions, admissions coordinator, and you go from jail to jail. They're moving people from spot to spot to spot to try to stay within boundaries. It is a big problem. But with 40 people being in it and only 4 returning to incarceration, we're very thankful for those numbers. We always wished it was better. But addiction is a tough deal. It is a long-term problem, but we are seeing a lot of good results take place in that. The program that we would like to establish here in Pittsylvania County would be a women's facility. The network has both men's and women's programs. They're very similar. And a lot of times when people talk about addiction, they think of men. but it's as big a problem for women as it is men. My wife goes in and visits jails on a regular basis, and it's women are begging to have a way when they get out that they can go to a safe environment where they can get their lives straight. It's a very rewarding ministry, which we are a faith-based program, but it is very heartbreaking at times too. That's what we're about. I can give you, about the program and all this kind of stuff, but that's the basis of it. We need a place that we can start that women's facility. I will tell you that in Henry County, where I live, and that's where most of our people have come from initially. Judge Williams on the bench there in Henry County has given us a lot of individuals that have come into the program. Judge Greer in Martinsville City, Judge Milam in Danville, Judge Moreau here in your county has let the individuals come into our program. And frankly, we're the only thing going in that realm in Southside. You got a program on up in Central Virginia. You got Eagles Nest up in Floyd. Both of those stay full a big part of the time. That's where we are. We're here to do what we can to help the community. Now, one organization's not going to solve this problem. It's a community-wide effort. And I say to the counties around us, I've gotten guys out of Patrick County, Franklin County, of course, Henry, here. If we put our minds to it and make the commitment, we can see changes take place. Or either we can just, I've had people say, well, man, I don't want that around me. Well, the fact that a recovery center is not what attracts addicts to your community. The fact that you say, well, I don't want a recovery center here, you think that means that the addicts suddenly go away? It's like I've told guys, I had an individual, which I pastored in Henry County for 30 years. I had an individual that was one of my parishioners that when we started the Hope Center, he said, I live in that area. I wasn't real thrilled about that. I said, had you rather than be in a recovery center or be knocking on your door at midnight? And they don't go away because you don't give them treatment. That's where we are.
I got just one question.
Yes,
what
sir.
took you so long?
That's an interesting question because when we started the men's center, the women found out you got a men's center. When are you going to do something for us? When nobody was doing anything, nobody asked any questions. I understand. Absolutely. Mr. Davis. No, go ahead.
How many will you be able to house the one you're talking about in Africa?
We're looking at 8 to 12 beds at this point. Our facility in Henry County, we're at 20 beds now. It's in a different setting. It was Irishburg School that shut down, and you got a church on one end of that. We lease 7,000 square feet on the other end from the church. That's the Hope Center. So it depends.
Excuse me. Go ahead, Mr. Go ahead, Mr.
Have you had any problem, any major problems?
With the community?
No, I'm talking about the individuals now.
Yeah, at times you do. But here's what we do. We drug test them every week. If they fail a drug test, the next thing we do is call probation. So they go back into the system. We've had, like I said, 4 that got into that situation. We care about the guys, we sew into them, but we hold them to standards too. Yeah, it's a struggle at times. When an individual has been living a lifestyle like this, sometimes for years. We had a guy that came in that he was 40 years old. He said after he had been in our program for a while, it's the first time his grandkids had ever seen him sober. It takes a while to change those things. But that's what we're working on.
Mr. Stowe.
I believe I talked to you.
You talked to my son.
Your son?
Yeah, he couldn't be here tonight, so he let his old man stand in his place.
I think I found the house.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Down, that's not a public road?
That's correct.
Okay. Back down the end of the woods.
Yep. And we like to find things that are more isolated. First of all, so that you don't create stir in the community. And the other thing, it's more beneficial for those going through the process. If you put them in a city area, for instance, it's so much activity going on. It's more than you can fight. Absolutely. The exact address is 219 Springview Court, Danville is the address of it. Yeah.
You turn on Western Pines, go down
That.
Martin Drive, I think. Yeah, it's just a little ways down there on the left.
Yeah, it's a new section in there that's being developed. Yep.
There's about 3 or 4 houses down on that road.
Dr. Miller.
Yes, sir. I've been listening to you make your presentation, and there are very, very, very few programs that can boast a 90% success rate. And that's what I heard you say, I think.
Well, yeah, as far as returning to, yeah, absolutely.
All right, and also, oh Lord, senior moment.
I understand your pain.
Oh yeah. Also, it's public knowledge now. We, as members of the Board of Supervisors, are presently engaged in opioid situation litigations, and listen to the news. We hear that the state is also considering and looking at matters. So, as a church pastor myself, I say full steam ahead.
I agree. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
And the thing, Mr. Miller, is, hopefully the state and counties will get funds, but unless there's some recovery places, it's not going to touch the problem.
Yes, Ms. Meese.
Okay.
If I had an addiction, can I knock on your door, or do all these referrals come from the court?
Both. I spend a lot of time in courtrooms and in jails talking to guys and appealing to the court for them to come in. But we also have families that bring people in. Sometimes we have people that they don't have any legal issues, but they know they're getting in trouble, and they'll come to us.
I know that's what I'm getting ready to find out. Yeah, that's what.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely, and we've had a judge that came in and visited our facility because he was looking for recovery for his son. So it's not one social strata. It's.
Let me ask you this: do y'all have a marketing department? Do you go into the churches or the community? Because I'm not aware of this program.
I'm sure you're not, and that's another benefit of me being here. Like I said, we're dealing with several counties around us, but the word is slowly and surely getting out. Your sheriff is very much aware of it, and I've attended a number of meetings here in Pittsylvania County. relative to these issues. So the word is getting out, and as it does, we're getting more. I get phone calls daily, you know, and letters, you know, from people saying, please help us. So we're getting there. Well, yep, I understand.
Dr. Miller.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
Just out of curiosity, are you Medicaid funded, Medicare, private foundation? What?
It's faith-based, which means that insurance companies typically will not fund, you know, that kind of thing. We do several things.
What did you say?
I said we do several things as far as raising funds. It typically costs us $20,000 per individual to go through it. Now. Yeah, but we have a 12-month program that if we get a admission fee of $700, we'll put them through 12 months. Now, how do we make that happen? One of our pieces of funding is when guys get to a certain part in the process, and I say guys because we're in a men's center, but we're talking about a women's center too. But when we get to the second phase of our program, there's 3 phases of it, but we have a work therapy part. And we tell them before they ever come in, before they ever enroll, now we are going to get you jobs, and we've got employers begging for our people. Why? Because one of the problems that employers have is getting guys to pass drug tests. We tell them, okay, we can guarantee you they'll be drug-free, that we will transport them to and from work, and if we have somebody that's sick, if at all possible, we'll plug somebody else in that position for that. You see what I'm saying? So employers like to employ them, but the money that is generated from that employment comes to help pay for the program, which I think is a good thing for addicts to get the self-esteem of saying, hey, I didn't have to lean on mama or grandpa to do this. I'm doing everything I can to pay for my own recovery.
Mr. Stowe.
We have a son down the road, not too far from where you're gonna be looking. I agree with you, Doug. Where you come in, pick up the drugs, try to get you off of the drugs.
I think the county.
I'm not familiar with that one, but I'll take your word for it.
Is that a methadone clinic?
Well, if you're talking about west of here,
No, I'm not about her.
okay, I'm not aware of this one then. Okay.
I think it'll help.
We realize Danville is, on number 2, I think, in the drug.
Yeah.
state.
Yep.
That's true.
Something like
That's
that,
true.
anyway.
That's
And
right.
we've got, I was on the school board, was 40% of our, elementary kids, mother was, she had to carry the child, so we have to administer medicine to them.
I understand.
Did you get my message?
Go to school. Do they require any drug treatment or anything like that?
Well, let me say this to you. We do not use drugs to try to solve drugs. And I've interviewed a lot of guys in jail or whatever. You know, I'm depressed. I have anxiety. I'm bipolar. Da 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 da. And I tell them, I understand. If I was sitting there in jail, I'd be depressed too. What we found is if we can get them into our program, and we have just a handful of medications that we'll allow to come in. If they are being medicated on top of their addiction, it's very hard to know what's going on. But if you can get them off of the addiction, the other problems amazingly seem to evaporate. Does that make any sense? So we've got a guy in right now that he is in our program because he's addicted to methadone. Because he went into a facility and they just exchange one thing for another. It doesn't work.
I mean, I was down there
I understand. Well, yeah, and the thing is, you cannot get a facility that is so far out in the backwoods that drugs aren't there. I mean, they're impervious. They're everywhere.
That's what I was gonna ask. Besides, what we need a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to, recommendation.
Yeah, I would say a motion to hold a public hearing at your next meeting. So at your next planning commission meeting, there'll be a public hearing, because to change the ordinance, you have to have a public hearing. So there'll be a public hearing with the wording we'll come up with, residential addiction treatment center or something similar to that. And then you guys will have your public hearing, make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors.
Make a motion that we have a public hearing.
Motion by Mr. Horn, please second. Dr. Miller, all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion's passed. Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
When will that date be?
November that's gonna be on Thursday, cause the election's on the 6th. And it, be November the 8th on Thursday.
November the 8th.
Am I correct on that?
Yes, sir.
Lord willing, we'll be here. Thank you very much.
At 8:41, adjourned.